Okay, so we're group 5, and we're going to start off with the first question of what is the value of comparing media? Anyone?
Well, it exposes our flaws in the system, and
Okay, so our values is going to be talking about our flaws, but can that also be seen as a downside?
I believe so.
Okay, so flaws are seen as a downside as well as values. So when we're discussing values and comparing media and showing our flaws, what do you think that relates back to? Like, do you think that it shows that, like, U.S. values compared to other values in other countries? So basically showing what our government explains to us throughout media to other countries and how they portray things in the media. How do you think the flaws go into that?
I think it presents values in the way that it kind of sheds a little bit of a light in a way on, what we're taught growing up and what we kind of know as a nation as far as what goes on here. And then on the flip side, the downside of it is that we are kind of narrow-minded in the fact that going back to other posts such as the radio and music industry and the news, that we're a very narrow-minded country in the fact that all we produce is kind of about ourselves. And that's kind of the downside, that we might not get the whole picture that we could.
Okay, so this has to do more with how we're very, U.S.-centric. We only focus on United States values, more likely.
But the value could be just maybe us being able to recognize that.
That could be a value of us being able to recognize?
Yeah, that we're able to realize that we're doing that.
Also, with going off of the downside, it's not only are we so U.S.-centric, we expect everybody else to be U.S.-centric.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
And most of the news facets that we've looked at have shown a heavier U.S. News too.
Yeah. Like even in BBC,
Yeah.
or you'd see more about what's going on in or in America, like the Trayvon Martin case. Yeah. That was everywhere, and that was a big news story, but in reality, what do people in England care about it?
Mm-hmm.
But then, saying that, what do we care about news going on overseas? So we can look at it, the flip side of it too.
just to bring up, going back to the beginning of the semester when we kind of looked at the Al Jazeera website, that was a brand new thing, I'm sure to all of us, and basically seeing that other countries do talk about us, do talk about world issues, and we're a country who doesn't, I think that's a huge flaw in our system.
Yeah. It has to be like a disaster or
for us to talk
about it, yeah.
I think it's a value, though, that other countries talk about us because they look at us at a complete different, point of view, the way we look at ourselves, we're probably trying to hide, the system, we don't want to actually tell what went wrong, where other countries would point out first, this is what really happened, the outside view of the issue.
Biased.
Different
Yeah,
stories.
it gives us a complete different perspective on ourselves, and I feel like that's really important.
Okay. All right, so that's basically our idea of flaws. What else could we talk about?
I mean, we can talk about the commercialism. Everything that we've discussed as a group on SPACE has been centralized around the idea that we're a very commercial society. Okay. And I feel like a lot of our examples ranging from the use of smartphones, different trends as far as celebrity, and our idea of bigger is better, different things like that. It's basically centers around what we are as a country.
Okay. Do you think that would be one of our main avenues through media?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that our commercialism could also be a value to our media because so many other people I feel like our country really started the whole idea of commercialism and how it's spread so much all over the world.
Yeah, if you look at the radio shows that we listen to, how even the way that they're set up, how you have the commercial breaks, they're all kind of, even if they were in different languages, we were able to understand that it was so
what was
similar
going on.
to our structure. for the commercial breaks, and even regular TV shows too.
So commercialism is basically based off like our country's original ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Like how in his talk he talked about the Anglo-American roots of everything.
Especially for the start of
I think that could be an avenue too, like just taking where like fundamental ideas and components of a media system, taking that and seeing where the roots are from and how it got to where it is. Like, how did American value of radio, the commercialism, how did that get to Czech Republic? Where do they adopt it? Where do they change it? Where do you see the communism, like
So it's like they kind of like
post-communism
got
in it?
like a knowledge-based idea from us.
Yeah.
So it's not only like we set up avenues for ourselves, but we set up avenues
It's not like a
for
starting point, like a base point for other
Yeah.
countries who are just starting out to kind of grow.
And we could say that other countries do that as well. Like, I would say like BBC One, with everybody loves their radio, and you hear that, like, it's a starting point for a lot of songs. I think that would be like, that's where you start. Where does that translate into America?
Yeah.
It helps us relate other countries to ourselves a lot easier.
Mhm.
Also, like how we were talking about people who get to study abroad might know something that most people otherwise would not. And I feel like with the whole idea of commercialism, especially this past semester in this class, the way we've been talking about it, it allows us to kind of get some insight into those countries that we've kind of, in a way, westernized using the whole Anglo-American roots thing. And I feel like we're able to compare a lot more effectively by using commercialism.
So commercialism is also like another form of westernization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For other
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's interesting how the U.S. uses, or other countries use the U.S. as a base for comparison to judge themselves. You know, like it seems like a lot of countries always relate back to the U.S. and compare like what works for the U.S. and what doesn't work for
Yeah.
us and how you can change it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is the United States doing, and how can we, like, when they're translating, how he said they translate TV shows, Friends.
The, dubbing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just like, all right, this is working for the United States. How can we make it work for the Czech Republic?
How they
Yeah.
adapt,
It
for
says
their
something
people. Like
for
they
sure.
take our stuff and adapt it for their culture
Yeah.
and for their viewers.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly the same, but it's still a base point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Major comparison.
Okay. Also, I think it was very interesting, like, at least with our group and using space, how, like, it was all knowledge based off of our generation. Like, some of the other groups went back, like, far into history, back to, like, wars and whatnot. And basically, our group ended up focusing from the 90s on. Like, we were all born around the 90s, went through it all, started with Britney Spears, and basically we're basing it off that knowledge and how we affect it, going back to what we were just saying, we affected so many others. They listen to our music. Like, I was listening to the Nigeria radio, and as soon as I turned it on, she started singing Single Ladies. And then she mentioned a girl called in and was like, "Hi, I'm MJ," and she's like, "You named after Michael Jackson." Like, the whole time it was talking about more American values.
Yeah.
So I think our knowledge base has spread everywhere.
I think it just makes it easier for us that way, being able to relate to some of these things that we would never have been able to make any comparison or, draw any lines to. And we're able to use the things that we're familiar with. Going back to the use of Britney Spears and NSYNC in our first post, we were able to pull examples from Ferris Bueller was a movie that we all knew, and we could have picked a movie that we had never seen or heard of before and tried to research it, but picking something that we're familiar with, it really helps in a really big way, especially for other people reading our posts. I feel like they're able to more effectively understand what we're trying to get across by using things that not only we know, but they know as well.
They were able to connect with it and understand it a lot more.
And we were even able, because of stuff that we learned in class, we were able to like pull out things from Ferris Bueller, like the cars.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I would never have noticed, like, oh, our cars were big and flashy, but it's still kind of, they had a car and the same idea that the car is a status symbol no matter where you go. How it could be.
I think using stuff that we have lived through just works so much better, because if we try to compare using Elvis, like, we know who everybody knows who Elvis is, everybody knows, like, a general idea, but we didn't live through that phenomenon.
Really know about
We don't know what it was like to be there and to
Right.
see what it was like, but Britney Britney Spears and NSYNC, that was our childhood. Like,
and being able to compare that, I feel like trying to look up stuff in the Czech Republic from the 90s, like, is so hard to do because they didn't have that. So, like, comparing us to them, like, we had pop music and craziness, and, like, I couldn't find, like, anything comparing our pop culture music to
their pop
to their anything.
Well, our pop culture is kind of their pop culture. Like, if their radio stations play our music,
yeah.
they watch our TV shows.
So
And then there's also that,
would be
like,
value, though,
centralized...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That would definitely be a value.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was just saying, like, even though, like, Czech Republic plays a lot of our songs, you could see somebody posted the top 10 iTunes songs, and there were still at least half of them were, like,
they were
Czech-based or that regional-based. So they do have a sense of identity